Jeff.
And I'm John.
Welcome to Relational Media. This is a series, a 6-part series, the first one on why we fight about money. And this one is specifically about communication and money. So we want to jump right in. So there are a lot of reasons why communication might create some unique challenges for couples. And one of them is that when one person is a money manager, they may have more information about money, like how much is coming in or how much is going out. And so they may have a working knowledge that's significantly more detailed than the person who is not the money manager.
And that's the same with any task in a marriage. There's some things that my wife knows where to find. I don't know where they are, and vice versa. So we tend to compartmentalize a lot of things. We tend to play off of each other's strengths and kind of divide up the labor. So it's pretty common to have one person in a relationship have more operational knowledge of where money goes, when it goes, and how much is going.
Yeah, so the second barrier that we might find in communication between couples is sometimes it's really difficult to stay up to date on exact numbers since they change every day, especially with the first point. If there's one person who's more familiar with the numbers day to day and one person that's not managing the money, then sometimes the person who's not managing the money is really behind on the numbers, so they don't know how much is going in or going out.
And some of that information kind of has a freshness date on it. So bills come in, you open them up, and if you're the person who does the bills, you look at them, and you might have an observation of, oh, the electricity bill is higher this month. That makes sense because the AC's been running. But you have kind of a working flow of those numbers. But as soon as you're done with the bill, you chuck it in the trash can, and your partner may never see it and have that information flow that you have.
It's also a problem when the person who might be doing the money management is not looking at the money every day. So maybe they look at it once a month or something like that. So in that sense, you might not know what's been committed to in terms of expenditures. Some money might be going out and one person may not know or may not know when it's coming out. So that can cause some arguments.
Yeah, there's probably nothing less accurate than checking your balance online, because you don't know what bill's getting ready to come. You don't know when the mortgage comes out. And it's a very frustrating thing to say, I know there's information available, but I can't trust that it's accurate. And I feel a little bit out of control when I'm not the person who's doing everything.
Yeah. So the third one is that one person might be more skilled than the other in terms of understanding how the numbers work. So if you use an app or some software to capture your financial info, then one person may know how to do that and the other person may not. Also, I think a similar kind of idea is that one person may not actually like to think about the money. I've definitely known couples where one person just really hates even just talking about the money. They don't understand it, they don't know how to do it. It's just kind of a mess from their perspective. So a dilemma around communicating can be if someone is just really avoiding the subject of money or how the money works in the family, it can cause some serious problems. The fourth one is that each person grows up with a style in terms of how they think or deal with money. Just like you have personality, your personality impacts your style of thinking about money or managing money. And so sometimes people don't realize this, but your style might be really different than your partner's style. So if one of you is like really frugal and the other one's like high risk taker, and you don't realize that, you're in love, whatever, right? You don't realize, you're not paying attention to that sort of thing, right? When you're first together. And so, but if you have different styles like that, they can cause serious conflict.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to say some of this just has to do with how you structure things. So, if you are the type who likes to kind of play it loose and not track things really tightly, you might be the type of person who needs more in savings. If you're the type who really loves to have a really tight budget, and you kind of feel like, well, from an efficiency standpoint, I don't really want a lot of money sitting in savings. All of these things, these differences, they set us up for friction. In how we work together on a complex problem.
Yeah. All right, number 5. So life events can sometimes change our perspective on money. Can you think of some life events that might do that?
Even just a bad day at the office. One day you feel like, I'm going to get promoted here. I'm going to get a raise. Life is great. And then something happens and you read a story about your company, or something happens to somebody in your office that you had no idea they were going to get moved out of their position. And all of a sudden what you thought was stability for you in that moment isn't. I laughingly and lovingly say, I know what mood my wife was in the morning when I left. I'm not going to be really certain until I get home what mood she's going to be in. And I think we all face that. We face this idea that each day is dynamic. And we tend to view the glass as half full or half empty, just based on how we see things that day. So even things that maybe my spouse and I have agreed that we want to do financially, yesterday that sounded great to me. But if something has changed in my world, I've got to get good at communicating back that, hey, I'm suddenly feeling less secure. And how we communicate about those things in real time is an opportunity to improve how we communicate.
Yeah, I like that. The everyday things can definitely cause friction. And also the big things too, like, a death in the family, the birth of a baby, the need to purchase a home or a car, some large purchase. All these things, big things and small, can cause friction in a relationship. All right, let's move on to the last one. So number 6 is extra money. Like if one of you gets a bonus
or a raise,
yeah. Extra money in the system can sometimes, I know this sounds crazy, but it sometimes causes friction.
Well, it adds risk. And you'd say, well, how can more create risk? Because we haven't decided what we're going to do with it. And also that is also typically information that isn't disseminated at the same time. So I find out I'm getting a raise. I find out I'm getting a bonus. I now have free time to think about where that might go before my spouse hears about it. And so we don't typically we don't do a great job of coming together and say, hey, there's a new resource that's going to be available to us, and we need to take some time to think about how we want to allocate this or how we want to save this, what's best for both of us in this situation. Even though that's kind of an obvious thing to do, our brains typically don't go down that road initially.
Yeah, the fantasy I hear sometimes when I'm working with couples is that they, one of them's getting a bonus or a raise or something like that, and they've already purchased something in their mind they haven't talked to their partner about yet.
Yeah.
So that, in their mind, the money is already spent. So and sometimes they'll actually spend it, and that really causes a problem. Sometimes, and so having the conversation with your partner, hey, I want to spend my bonus on a new boat, and the other person says, oh, a new boat, that's
especially when they haven't even had the chance to really process that there's new resources available.
That's right.
If you've ever been in that moment where you go, I feel like you're just springing this on me, and I haven't had a chance to process it or kind of think about what this actually means. Remember that the other person has to have some time to understand what's happened.
To catch up.
Yep.
You might have been thinking about it for weeks, and they just thought about 5 minutes. So give them a chance. All right, let's talk about some tips for overcoming the communication problems that you might experience. The first one I would say is have a really in-depth series of conversations with your partner, because you need to identify common values. So common values is a big thing in our work, right? And basically the idea is that we want to make sure that you have lots of conversation about what you two believe is most valuable to you in life, what's more valuable to you than money.
Yeah.
And that is what is going to be directing your financial and every other decision.
Yeah, so the idea being that since we've already decided that these are the things that as a family or as a couple that we really want to advance in, we want to move forward in. Anytime new resources are available, or quite frankly, anytime an unexpected expense shows up, our first reaction isn't to panic. Our first reaction is not to spend money. Our first reaction is to go back together to this moment where we review what it is we're trying to accomplish and kind of reset together. So, and I would add right now that maybe this sounds like an awful lot of work, to have this type of communication going on all the time. But if you are in a position where you find you and your spouse are constantly arguing about money, you would probably admit that that's a lot of effort is being wasted, a lot of emotional energy is being expelled, trying to get through some pretty basic things about how you do things financially. So we're kind of proposing that this is good work. Mm-hmm. This is good work that hopefully will lead you to an exit of having the same arguments over and over again.
Yeah. Better to spend your energy on something that will help you.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, know exactly where you are financially. And what do we mean by that? So basically, one of the big things we really advocate is that you understand the income and expenses that you might be having over X period of time. Typically, we suggest 12 months, mm-hmm. but you could do 6 months or whatever the time frame is. And that helps you to understand your starting place. Like when you're going somewhere and you're going to use your map, your electronic mm-hmm. map, right? You need to know where you're going. Mm-hmm. But you also need to know where you're starting from.
Yeah.
Because you can't get there. The computer won't calculate the route unless it knows where you are right now. So this is your starting point, right? Know exactly how much money comes in and how much money goes out for X amount of time. 12 months is what we suggest.
Right. And again, you probably have one person in the relationship that goes, I already know that. But the way that you know it is very different than the way that your partner is trying to understand it. If you've been doing anything for a long period of time, you have this wealth of knowledge that you're drawing from as to how things work. And then somebody comes in new or comes in occasionally and just tries to understand where we are at any one given moment. I can give you an answer, but it won't have a lot of meaning. So we recommend that you create a system together that is kind of how you understand the flow of money, what's coming in and what's going out. And that you have some language around that you both kind of understand and feel comfortable that you have a shared place in that information.
And that leads to our third tip, which is communicate often with your partner, regularly, in some kind of routine that you create together about money. Remember the problem we talked about before where you might not have enough information about mm-hmm. money because the details change from day to day, or maybe one person is more the money manager and one person is not so much. Communicating clearly and regularly as part of some routine will help you to avoid the kinds of friction that comes up for that kind of scenario.
Yeah, we're really talking about developing some new habits. And I'd go back to the electric bill as one of those. If you're the person who pays the bill, you open the electric bill, it's August, it's $100 more than it normally is. Instead of just looking at that and going, it's totally cool to say, hey, electric bill went up $100 this month, it's the AC. Quite frankly, it's the best money we spend all year because I don't want to be hot. Just making a joke about something and imparting the information at the same time, it only takes an extra 5 or 6 seconds, but you're creating that same rhythm that you go through. You're just doing it with your spouse. Maybe they couldn't care less, but they're still picking it up, and it's providing some context for future discussions.
All right, number 4. So this is really important because it's a big one.
Okay.
So I want you to avoid judgment or criticism about spending or saving, because criticism is a thing mm-hmm. in relationships. Mm-hmm. It's actually a real big thing. It's so easy, so easy to begin to criticize someone's character rather than making a complaint about a problem. Mm-hmm. And the distinction is absolutely important. And when you're criticizing someone's person, their mm-hmm. personality, their character, you are basically pressing the little nuclear button. So it's really important not to judge your partner, because they're doing something for a reason, right? Yeah. They're spending or saving, whatever they're doing it for a reason. And they're probably doing it mostly in good faith, mostly. Mm-hmm. They might make mistakes, mm-hmm. they might have ill intent once in a while, but mostly they're your partner. Mm-hmm. So look to them for why they're doing what they're doing and try to understand it, try to have a little empathy, and figure out what it is that you need to do in order to solve the dilemma there. But don't start with criticism.
I think we've all been in a position where, well, we wouldn't necessarily want to be accused of retail therapy or whatever it is you want to call
Right.
it. We've all said, man, I just need to, and it ends up costing a little bit of money. And we've gone through several steps in our own mind, insulated by ourselves, justifying why that needs to happen before we pull the trigger. We may even have said to ourselves, I'm going to get in trouble for this, and I'm going to ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yeah.
All of these, kind of mental Olympics take place, and we know that. But showing some grace, recognizing that your partner's going to have days where they make decisions that they wouldn't have made on a different day, and you do it too, and trying to get better at this kind of constant casual communication about values and money brings you to a place where the friction starts being less and less.
Yeah. So number 5 fits into number 4, which is be curious about how your partner does money. Curiosity is so important in our work. We absolutely value curiosity as a way to help create some growth and connection in relationship. So you need to figure out what it is that they're thinking and feeling about a specific financial decision and about money in general. Try to do something so that you can get to an understanding about how they think and feel about it.
If you've watched any of our videos before, you know that we think money is kind of interesting because it takes on whatever flavor you give it. So whenever you see something happen financially, whether from you or from a spouse that is kind of out of the norm, understand that that wasn't a money decision. There was some context, some event, some texture as to why that purchase or that reaction took place, and you just see the money coming in or the money coming out.
Curiosity is really, really important in our work together because we think it's one way that we can use to really grow connection in a relationship.
One of the things that's amazing is that when we have these arguments, they're typically not one-offs. When people come to us, or at least to me, and they say, we seem to keep having the same argument over and over, even the script is the same. And so it's like they can't get out of the same pattern. So what possibly could be behind this this idea that there is, something happens and I respond to it the same exact way every time? The only way out of that is by being curious about what got you there, what motivated it, what drove you to that spot. And for the person who feels like they're the one who's on the losing end of this argument all the time, why is it that your partner is motivated to do this, other than, well, they're just a bad person?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the criticism one.
Exactly.
Right? Like, don't be poking at the other one's character. Figure that, give them the benefit of doubt, right? Like they're doing something for a reason. Why not find out what that reason is?
Yeah, allow yourself to see some of these things as puzzles, puzzles that can be solved, puzzles that can be solved together.
Yeah. All right, and let's jump to the last one, number 6. Focus on teamwork. Oh my gosh, teamwork. One of the things that we really advocate is that when you go to create the first tip, which is like a set of common values, that your common values work basically as a place for you to point yourselves together. So you're working as a team to do the things that you both experience as valuable, more valuable than money.
One of my favorite questions to ask couples is, where do you want to be in 20 years? What do you want to have accomplished? What do you want to have built? If you were starting a company, you would very clearly, before you would be allowed to borrow any money, you'd want to be able to prove that you knew what it was you were doing, why you were doing it, and how it was going to work, and what you were trying to achieve. We know how to do those things as people, but somehow in relationships, it's kind of like after we get together, we kind of feel like we're done, and now we just kind of go about the day. But there's still stuff to do, and our values are really helping communicate to us about what it is we want to build and accomplish.